Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. In this episode, you will hear part 2 of my conversation with Kathleen Borbee, Professor of Business Administration at Monroe Community College in New York. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. I think it's really great to sort of catch you at this moment where you are still pretty fresh with, portfolios and, it wasn't that long ago before you were just getting started. Did you have any sort of, just reflecting on this year, any sort of surprises or things that you expected to happen and didn't happen, or, things that, or the other way around, or things that happened that you just kind of like bullseye, you had it all?
Right. Well, whenever you kind of jump in with something brand new, I thought, okay, let's see how we're going to embrace this. And I figured there's, like with anything in an academic environment, there's always going to be students that struggle, and there's always going to be students that kind of run away with it and go, oh my God, I've got this, I've got this. So there was some of that which did not surprise me. So, and with the individuals who struggled, we now have an individual that has been named as the faculty student support. That's a huge step for us to go to just for this 1 year. Because as a faculty member, I was essentially campus support. I literally went to every single class in the fall, because that was our very first semester, to introduce e-portfolios in the classroom and to demonstrate it, to bring it up, to demonstrate it to the students so that they could feel comfortable with it and to start, creating step-by-step instructions. But now we're starting to get, that's a huge step. We're starting to get some structure around that. It'll be a lot easier going forward. One of the things, though, that I was very delighted at, really, in my 200 level courses, when I said to them, all right, you need to do this e-portfolio as a professional e-portfolio. I laid out the guidelines very specifically, what I wanted them to do. I had a template, and I said, it doesn't have to be lockstep. If there's a tab you don't want, that's fine. You could add something, that's fine. But these are the things that must be included. There was a core that had to be included. I was amazed at the results I got. The student portfolios were incredibly creative, really creative. And some of the students, said, oh, do I have to do this just for me? I have a small business. Can I do it for my business? I'm like, yes, 100%. Do it. And they were like, oh my God, this is great. I'm going to be able to give this URL to people, put it on my business card as a QR code, and this is what I do, and they'll be going right to my e-portfolio. I'm like, yes, you got it. So having those light bulbs go off, having them realize, oh, wow, this is amazing. And I had one student who's like, you know what? I'm really not ready to do an e-portfolio for myself. I'm not comfortable with it yet. However, I'm on this organization on campus called Cabbages and Kings. It's a student-run magazine, and they publish an incredible book every year. Can I do an e-portfolio for them? I said, absolutely. Just, yeah, whatever. Oh my God. That took my breath away, because then, and we show that all the time, saying, folks, look at this. Every one of our campus organizations could have their own e-portfolio. And people say, oh, what are you all about? Well, here's what we're all about. He had samples of prior publications, things they sell, pictures of the president, vice presidents of the organization. It was amazing. So we really just, without, by not putting fences, if you will, kind of around the e-portfolio assignment, we found that the creativity was tremendous, and was like, yeah, we're going to push this now. We're going to push organizations to do this. So it was it was it was great fun. It really was great fun. And as soon as we had that first semester of students, well, my goodness, then we could show the spring semester of students, hey, look what other students have done so far. And they were very impressed and thought, oh, okay, a little peer pressure never hurts anybody. And so they thought, okay. Or I would say, now you don't have to do this. And so when you say to somebody, you don't have to do this, demonstrates the stuff, but this is what I want. As soon as you say you don't, then they say, but I want to. So tell me how to do that again. The fancy stuff, the background pictures, the foreground pictures, the translucent kind of picture on picture. So again, it's kind of a subtle challenge that you give them. And so it's like, oh, she doesn't want us to do this. Well, then I want to. Yeah.
I mean, look, it's definitely sounds fun. Which is something that I feel like that it's a criteria that is way undervalued. I mean, especially in a college environment, there are times where, um, actually, I would argue that for many people, the criteria, the metric, fun is not at all considered when they're thinking about their student learning. Um, Oftentimes, I mean, I don't hear it often, really. Like if it happens to be great, if you happen to be I mean, Kathleen, look, you are obviously a fun person to be around, so it just comes out naturally. But like when one were to talk about, let's revamp our gen ed curriculum, or let's revamp our business, administration and curriculum, fun was not really, going to be one of the main criteria. Yet I believe, really, very honestly, that fun is really another way a more direct way for people to think about engaged learning, which, by the way, is huge. People always talk about, how do I engage my students? How do I engage my students? But they forget that sometimes just a little bit of fun can do it.
Absolutely. Sometimes, you know, you, you feel morally obligated, obviously, to cover certain content. You have to, there's certain vocabulary. When you get out of this course, you have to at least remember these things. But sometimes I would, in the middle of a lecture, I would just look at them and nobody was listening. And I'm thinking, okay, I would just like turn off the computer. All right. You know what? I'm going to throw out a couple of questions and about your project, about your e-portfolio, and I'm going to give extra credit to, get in your teams, do this. And I would just stop right in the middle of a lecture and go, here's what we're going to do. And I just had to do that, getting them talking to each other. I got more work out of them than just having them listen to me. So, and I'm going to continue to do that, especially with the students that, we've gotten lately, the new students, the first year students that have literally just coming out of 3 years of the pandemic.
Mm.
They didn't have the opportunity to talk to their classmates and to be in live teams those couple of years in high school. And so they really missed out on a lot of that socialization. And so when you really encourage that and in some way force it, all of a sudden it opens up a whole world of possibilities to them that they really haven't been thinking about the last 3 years, because they have been in their sort of own myopic world. And now it's like, no, this is really important. You need to talk with each other. And, so I think that's so important. And I know even in my reflections of, I always made them do reflections on the projects. So with e-portfolios, I thought, all right, you've done this whole project. I know you felt it was tedious. Okay. But I'm not going to make you write a reflection, because that seems like a punishment to me. Writing a reflection after you've just done this written report. So I want you to do a video reflection and just be real, just like we're doing here, and just tell me, how did you feel about the course? What was the difficult parts? What were the easier parts? What did you struggle with? I kind of gave them an outline of what they could talk about. But, and again, they, for a minute, thought, oh, how do I do this? I think, you can do it. You can do it. And, if you don't like your first recording, record it again. I only want 2 minutes. It's really easy. So, and they, remarkably, they did a great job. They did a great job. So they thought, all right,
I
yeah,
I think that's awesome. I really like the idea. I'm seeing it more and more now that people are saying exactly what you said. They don't want the students to feel like, oh, what used to be one paper now is two papers.
right.
That sucks. That really sucks. you
It
know.
does.
Whereas when you're saying, hey, look, let's now make the second part to be something that would be a completely different experience. They
Right,
would try something out new, and most likely they enjoy it at the end. And that's pretty. It's a way for them to also be creative, or maybe get out of that model that they were stuck at, because they were
right,
thinking so much about this is like an academic, assignment, a project that is handed in is going to be graded. Then
right.
they can get out and do something else, which make that reflection, which I feel like is so important, and you really make that a fun part of the learning experience. It's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And of course, and that's a perfect um, feed into e-portfolios connecting to service learning, because as part of the service learning process, you need to reflect on what you've done. And so that's, they just fit so hand in hand. As you mentioned earlier, these hips are really more like a Venn diagram. They do not stand alone. One feeds into the next, and I'm always encouraging my colleagues. It's like, well, you could do this, and then you could have any portfolio. And some people get overwhelmed, thinking, oh my God, I have to do this and this and this in my class. I said, once you get it go, it just think of it as just part of the part of your course, part of the content. Don't think of it as being something else on top of or in addition to. Just make it part of how you do your course, not an addition to your course. And I think that's the most important thing.
Well, that's really well said. By the way, I want to go back to one more thing that you talked about earlier. I love that you were telling us about the whole, students, either already making the connection with, well, for my business, for my project, for this and that, I can
Right.
build a portfolio too. This is a great way to communicate and express myself. And then the one thing that I have, and then the whole, the publication, project. I love that. And one something that I have found recently that I think it's actually over the pandemic that I have discovered this and really come to or try to understand it. And that is, there are situations where, um, whether I think you had specifically said, hey, this student said, I don't think I'm ready for a personal portfolio yet, but
Right.
I'm ready for this, right? There are people in situations where I think that it's not so much about whether they're ready for it. Some people may actually, in some ways, leapfrog need for having a personal portfolio, and instead their, so to speak, personal portfolio is this project, is this service, is this brand, is this um, passion that they might have. So we have had some students actually be on this Digication Scholars
Mhm.
conversations before, who they spent their capstone project doing these amazing projects, and in these portfolios they never talk about themselves, like very rarely. It's just all about their research and their projects and the passion about that one topic.
Yes.
But what's crazy cool is that when the employer sees that, they are even more impressed than if they saw some kind of profile, because they look at it like, I'm imagining right now the student that did the annual publication that
Mhm.
you were talking about. We should go find that and post that URL in the show notes so people can see it. Um, that an employer could look at it and go, "Oh wow, you mean you organized this publication?
Right.
Like that's the person that we're looking to hire right now."
Exactly.
I really don't even need to see what degree, what courses, what other, like those things that, it's almost like the next version of, you know, show and don't tell. This is not even just showing. This is it. This is me. And they can see it, and they can say, "You're ready. You can take on this job today because I've seen another thing that you did, which is exactly what I want. I just wish our name was on it."
It 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 is. It's a remarkable e-portfolio, and you're absolutely right. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Once you start going down this e-portfolio path, you just don't ever want to go back, because you think, how in the world can somebody hire somebody by just now reading a resume, as opposed to
Mm,
looking at an e-portfolio either about themselves or about something that they've done, or a
mhm.
project that they have been involved with, because it speaks volumes about that person and really shows you what they're capable of. It's almost like you're seeing what you're getting before you get it. I mean, you hope you get the right person when you hire somebody, in the old fashioned way of just
Mhm.
using a paper resume. But with e-portfolios, you're thinking, okay, I really have a sense of, you know, who I'm hiring. I really have a
Yeah.
sense of their capabilities, their their passions, and what they're going to bring to the table.
Yeah. I think that um, hiring today, uh, uh, at least in most industries, I think there's still some industries where skills is the sort of the only thing that matters a lot, because it's maybe the skill, the type of skills are very, very specialized,
Right.
and you can't find a lot of candidates and that's it. And you find the right skills, you hang on to it. But for many industries, I mean, all the businesses that you were talking about, from construction
Hmm.
to, publishing something, let's say, right? The students that go out to the world to look for jobs and look for career opportunities, the people that could potentially be hiring them, they really are looking for very multifaceted aspect of that person. It's a cultural fit. It's where your heart is, or your passion, all of that combined, isn't it?
Absolutely. Going back to my son's company, that's because they're constantly looking for good people and hiring.
Mm,
And yes, it's a skilled industry. They're looking for specific skills, but he'll say, more importantly, if I get the right person, I get the
mm,
right team member, I get the person who's buying
yeah.
into our culture. If we
Mhm,
feel that it's a personal fit,
mhm.
we will we'll train that person,
Right.
because we can't train the personality.
Right.
Well, we can hire that, and we can train the skill.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice if they had certain skills, but if we will err on the side of getting the right person for our culture. They're all about that because they've done it the other way and it's not worked out.
Yeah, and we have found that here at Digication as well. There are all kinds of. It's actually really interesting. Some parts of our hiring process, especially for programmers,
Hmm.
we do. It's a tough process. They have to
Oh,
go
yes.
through. They have to go through a lot of hurdles, and we have actually make them do some coding. Just to show us what they can do. But what? Oftentimes they don't know is that we are assessing every interactions that we have with them. We're assessing whether or not how often they're emailing us or contacting us, how and you were talking about writing,
Hmm.
like what type of language they use. It's not because on the day-to-day basis, once people get hired into our company, we're pretty casual, like internally. We'll be like, because we have like chats and stuff like that, it's we're not having to write paragraphs all the time.
Right.
But we need to know the kind of person who can read the room enough to say you're in an interviewing process or you're in a hiring process, you know don't shorthand your communication and do emojis and just be professional,
Right.
and if we don't think that you are able to make that decision as just a level-headed person, read the room, understand what the situation is and act accordingly, then it shows us the kind of personality this is, right? And there are other people who, and I this happens, Kathleen, that I don't understand it. We, as part of our process, we do have a little. We allow people to put in the portfolios, and we have a little survey for them that talks about, hey, do you have examples of work you want us to see?
Hmm.
All of that, and 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 this is not once, but multiple times there would be people filling out, just simply said no, 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 down to all the questions. And they thought that their resume, which has the programming language or whatever, the technology that we're using, and they'll say 10 plus years of this, and that. And we're looking at it, we're going, you're not even going past round zero, you know?
Right.
Like you have there's not going to be a fit here no matter what. We don't care how skilled you are at this.
Right. People, I mean, there may be people that have been in an industry for years and years, but if they're not willing to embrace a new technology for change, it's like, no, I know how to do this. I'm quite skilled. Yeah, but the world is constantly changing, going back to change. So you've got to, it's like, yeah, bring it on, sure, we have to learn that, okay, so yeah, it's very important to hire the right person. And I think that certainly e-portfolios can be the first step in helping companies really start to interview the right people.
Yeah. Now, speaking of change in technology, um, I'd love to get your take on some of this, because in higher education and education in general, we are faced with all kinds of issues all the time, right?
Right.
Like we've had, diversity, equity issues. We've had the cost of higher education,
Yeah.
the value of higher education. Perhaps most recently in this last year, no one can escape the AI conversation, and the potential impact of that. Um, do you have any thoughts on that, on especially AI? Because I'd really love to get your take on it, and your perspectives with your history.
Well, that's interesting that you asked me that because um, I've been thinking a lot about it, and you know, I am actually currently restructuring some of my written assignments because I do the writing intensive. Um, and I've been working with Chat GPT, to see how an essay, I'll say, I need to have an essay written about this, and I'll see what comes out. And then I'm going to have my students rewrite it or analyze what the AI tool did. So it's thinking, oh, okay. We're not, it's going to be a tool that is going to be part of our lives, just like Zoom with the pandemic is forever part of our world. AI is going to be forever part of our world. Saying that, we're not going to use it is just being ridiculous. And so embrace it. Embrace it. Again, I make the analogy because I work with my son so much. It's a company that I also do some pro bono consulting with. Uh, they're looking at various aspects of their business. They're, again, small business. They're trying to organize things, really get things down so there's no gray area. And they're making process manuals for finance, for operations, for pre-construction. So we were using AI and we were asking all this stuff. Give me a list of all the stuff. And he was so impressed, thinking, wow, this is great. He's, I won't, we don't use this, we don't use this, we don't use, but it gives you a jumping off point. And so and it can make you much more productive, professional, by saying, okay, now this has got me started. It's like any other project we have, whether it's a project around the house, we're painting our house, we're doing this, we're doing that. Once you get started on a project, it's like, okay, I'm rolling. And I think AI can help us get started on things. And then we can take that and make it our own. Right. So that's kind of where I am. And I'm going to embrace it with my students. And so they can't just say, have an AI tool write my essay. I'm also giving them very current topics, like something that happened yesterday in the city that the AI engine can't look at. But I'll say, all right, so if you think you can do this with AI, go ask Chat GPT to give you an essay on this particular incident, and see if it works for you. And I'm kind of just restructuring everything, kind of trying to make it fun and say, oh, she knows what we're doing. Okay. So that's where I am with it.
I think it's really smart, and also there's a great deal of. I think it's really interesting. I mean, you talked so much about your passion in writing intensives, right,
Mm-hmm.
and the ability to write, and in some aspect of what is going to no doubt happen in our near future, even is that some 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 part of the process of writing will be replaced by AI.
No
We will
question
end
about
up
it.
doing a lot of writing by having the machine do some of the writing already,
Mm-hmm.
but the real job now is for you to be able to interpret that and being able to critique it and to be able to think further, than what the AI was able to give you. And I
Right.
think that that's really what that's a very realistic description, at least in the middle of 2023. Where AI is right now, right? That if you're a business like your son's business, like many other businesses in the world, um, taking advantage of what the AI has to offer is not at all. It'd be silly not to, right?
Absolutely.
You'd be doing something strange to not
Right.
take advantage of the efficiency that it provides you with.
No question
Um,
about it.
but the human part of it, has a lot to do with exactly what you just said, which is, hey, look, we can ask them a question about pre-construction processes or whatnot. They can suggest these, 35 steps. We can look at it and go like, huh, we some of these steps we definitely don't do, not applicable, because it only happens, we only do it if you're in an earthquake, environment. But there are a few things that they suggested that we don't do. So let's use them. Let's incorporate them.
Right.
Or we wanted to, sort of flip it around and it inspires to do something else. Maybe inspires to do something different or the opposite of even. But the idea is that it really sort of becomes like a base, like you said. It
Absolutely.
will likely start there. It's much much faster and more efficient, and so our role may very well keep evolving, like you said, and for 30 plus years, things just keeps changing and changing and changing, and this is just going to keep doing that, right?
It absolutely is. It's just the next phase of technology change, and we've got to, yeah, we've got to embrace it. And it's like I said, it is definitely not going away,
Yeah.
and it can absolutely. We humans, how many times have we ever just sat and stared at something we can't get going on it, and like, oh,
Right.
I am wasting my time. I should be
Yeah.
okay. I need to do something else because I'm not getting anywhere with this. Well, that's where AI can really make us much more productive. If any tool, if used properly, can really enhance our daily life.
Mhm, mhm. Do you think that students will be able to use AI positively, in their portfolios?
Definitely, I think they can. Um, I think when they are, if they can, when they're looking for um, an overview, let's say you're a graphic design student and you've got terrific examples of your work, amazing examples of your work, but you want to talk about it. And sometimes graphic design students are not necessarily students that write a lot, they create
Okay.
a
Yeah.
lot, right? They create a lot. So you might think, I want to describe what I'm doing here, and I need help getting started. And I want to put that description under my work in my e-portfolio. And they could use AI for kind of getting them started with that description kind of a thing. And they're like, oh yeah, that's perfect. And then, okay, now I'm there. And then they can put their own personality into that, because they
Mhm.
sometimes don't always know how to write about what they have created.
Yeah. Yeah. I also kind of kept thinking about um, some of the ways that I can see, AI really helping with generating reflective prompts for students. Like almost kind of like the idea of, a student having put in their work. It could be a paper, it could be an experience, it could be whatever, an event. Um, and that or actually, even like you were saying before. Actually, I will go back to where you were saying before. Students have taken what was it? A report and an analysis of a business or
Hmm.
something like that. Right at the end of the project, you are having them do a reflection in 2 minutes of a video.
Right.
I can also see how AI could take that report and be like, "Oh, this is really interesting.
Ah.
Here are some follow-up questions that are specific to the report that you just wrote," right? And it's questions, it's not even answers, just to ask you, like, "Hey, what's next after this?" I think those are potentially really interesting areas because
Oh.
I almost feel like that sometimes as a faculty member, you know, that's a heavy lift actually by faculty. If you have 20 students or 30 students or what have you, to come up with those questions for each student,
Yes.
um, it's quite a lot of work, and sometimes it takes a lot of effort to go through in order to get there. I could see in situations where a more real time and more automated way of potentially being able to ask those questions look, it doesn't come from your professor, but it gets you further so that by the time the professor looks at that interaction, can be like, but here's the critical question
Okay.
that you didn't ask, right?
All
So
right.
that's I think that could be a really interesting area.
That's very interesting, and of course, the AI tools are going to have to get a little bit more robust in order to do
Mhm,
some of that. But yeah, we've only dipped our toe in the water
mhm,
with this technology. It's a brave new world.
definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kathleen, for sharing all of your insights and your experiences and your journey with us today. What a lovely way to sort of see, the connections that you're able to make from your earlier career
Yeah.
to now, but also to you talking about how you make connections with your students, and your students making connections with their own worlds and their and the real world and the business world, etc. I think that's really fantastic. I hope that as you continue this journey, we get to get further glimpse of it as we sort of in the future, in the future months and years. So I look forward to keep in touch and following what you're up to with your students.
Well, you are most welcome, and thank you very much for this opportunity. This is, as you said, this has been fun.
Yes, it has. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon,
All
Kathleen.
right.
Take care. This concludes our conversation. To hear our next episode, be sure to subscribe to Digication Scholars Conversations on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. The Digication Scholars Conversation series is brought to you by Digication, a technology platform powering the most innovative e-portfolio programs in K-12 and higher education. Our website can be found at digication.com. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks for tuning in.